The Forlac fleet emerged from hyperspace, dark metal leviathans casting shadows over the human colony below. Admiral Krovax watched from the bridge of his command ship, arms folded behind his back, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Another easy conquest. Another colony that would fall before the might of the Forlac Empire. Scan the surface, he ordered. His officers worked swiftly, feeding him data. No planetary defenses. No heavy weaponry. Just a small settlement of human structures, spread out in neat rows. The Admiral let out a satisfied growl. The reports were correct. A deep, guttural voice came over the ship's comms. Admiral, ground forces prepped. Shall we begin? Krovax let the moment stretch before answering. Proceed. Dropships detached from the Forlac warships, their engines roaring as they cut through the atmosphere. The humans would surrender, as they always did. A few would resist, of course. Every species had its fools. But it would make no difference. This colony belonged to the Forlac now. The first squads landed in the center of the settlement. The streets were eerily quiet. No one greeted them. No terrified civilians running for cover. No desperate militia taking up arms. Just the wind, stirring up dust. A Forlac lieutenant tapped his comm. No resistance. Shall we begin processing the transmission cut out. Another squad moved toward the nearest structure. The door was already open. They entered cautiously, weapons raised. Inside, the room was dark, but something flickered, an active terminal. A screen displayed a single message in Forlac script. You have made a mistake. The hunt begins. A sharp whistle cut through the air. The squad leader turned, mandibles clicking. Something dropped from the ceiling. A flash of steel. Blood sprayed the walls. His vision blurred as he collapsed. Screams and gunfire erupted across the colony. Shadowy figures moved through the dust, striking with precision, disappearing before return fire could find them. The Forlac had expected resistance, but not this. Not this silent, surgical slaughter. On the command ship, Admiral Krovax's mandibles twitched as conflicting reports flooded his display. Sir, we are losing troops. Losing? The word felt wrong. Forlac did not lose to humans. A sudden realization crept into his mind. This wasn't a colony. It was something else entirely. Deploy reinforcements, Krovax snarled. His officers obeyed without hesitation, dispatching wave after wave of shock troopers to crush whatever pathetic resistance remained. The Forlac Empire had conquered dozens of human worlds. This should have been no different. Yet the screams continued. The ground squads were vanishing. Not wiped out in direct combat, not crushed in a glorious battle, but disappearing. Entire platoons would report in one moment and go silent the next. No distress signals. No emergency beacons. Just eerie, open comm channels filled with static. Krovax's secondary officers scrambled to analyze the losses. When the casualty reports came in, they made no sense. The humans were outnumbered 100 to 1. The Forlac had air superiority, better armor, better weapons. And yet they were losing. Frustration flared into rage. Tell me what we're fighting! A technician hesitated. Sir, the colonists are not civilians. Krovax turned slowly. Explain. The officer swallowed. Data records retrieved from human networks indicate this is not a standard colony. This settlement is designated as a restricted military facility. Specifically, he hesitated, mandibles clicking. A training ground for elite human operatives. A slow, cold dread settled over the Admiral's shoulders. He had thought he was hunting a weak, defenseless prey. Instead, he had walked his troops straight into the den of apex predators. On the surface, the slaughter continued. The Forlac shock troopers, trained for war, forged in a dozen campaigns, had never faced an enemy like this. The humans did not engage in firefights. They did not take defensive positions. They hunted. A squad moved through the ruins of a warehouse, weapons raised. A slight shimmer flickered in the air. Adaptive camouflage. The Forlac barely had time to react before the first man was down, his throat slit. The rest turned, firing wildly, but their enemies were already gone, moving like ghosts through the wreckage. Explosions rocked the outskirts of the colony. Not from human attacks. From Forlac weapons, hacked and turned against their own forces. Drones, gunships, targeting systems, all compromised. Their own war machines now slaughtered them with ruthless precision. Krovax's fleet trembled in orbit. He was not leading an invasion. He was leading a massacre. And the Forlac weren't the executioners. They were the prey. Krovax bared his fangs. This was salvageable. The humans had ambushed his ground forces, but they could not stand against the might of an orbital bombardment. If they wanted to turn this colony into a battlefield, he would turn it into a crater. "Prepare planetary bombardment," he ordered. Silence. The command crew hesitated. One of his officers swallowed hard. "Sir, our targeting systems are offline." Krovax's claws curled into his command console. "Impossible. Reboot them." "They are not malfunctioning, Admiral." The officer's voice was shaking now. "They have been hijacked." Krovax's mandibles parted slightly. He turned toward the main screen. Forlac warships hovered in perfect formation over the colony, weapons primed, but not aimed at the planet. They were aimed at each other. Alarms blared. A transmission cut through the fleet's encrypted channels. "Not Forlac. Human." A distorted voice spoke. "Calm. Cold. Asterisk. This is not a battlefield. It is a demonstration." Asterisk. The Forlac fleet, his fleet, turned against itself. Gunships opened fire on their own formations. Missile pods redirected their payloads into command vessels. Internal security systems registered friendly forces as intruders, sealing bulkheads, venting atmosphere, shutting down life support. Panic spread. The Forlac were a species forged by conquest, but they had never fought an enemy that could turn their own weapons against them. Krovax slammed his fist against the console. "Cut the transmission! We can't!" More reports came in. His soldiers were surrendering. The elite Forlac warriors, who had razed entire planets without hesitation, were laying down their arms. Not because they had been beaten in battle. Because they understood. This wasn't war. This was annihilation. Krovax's breath came ragged. His fleet was lost. His army was shattered. And somewhere, down on that forsaken planet, the humans were watching. Krovax stood frozen, his mind racing. Retreat was the only option. His fleet was compromised, his soldiers were surrendering, and the humans had turned his invasion force into a spectacle of humiliation. He had to escape, regroup, warn the Empire. "All remaining ships, retreat to hyperspace. Now, ***. More silence. Then, a quiet, final message from his comms officer. "Sir, hyperspace drives are unresponsive." Krovax's vision darkened. He knew what this meant. The humans hadn't just beaten him. They had trapped him. The main screen flickered again. The distorted voice returned, as calm as before. "You came here thinking we were prey." Outside, Forlac ships turned in synchronized formation. Not by their own command, but by human control. The flagship's own targeting systems locked onto itself. "Now you understand." Krovax's claws trembled. Not from fear of death. From understanding. This was not a colony. This was a warning. A message sent to the entire galaxy. Attack humanity, and this was what awaited you. The final command came through the hijacked systems. The Forlac fleet fired upon itself. Explosions rippled across the void. One by one, ships ruptured, consumed in their own firepower. Krovax felt the impact as his flagship buckled. Systems failed. Atmosphere vented. Fires raged through the corridors. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the colony below. Untouched. Unbroken. and waiting for the next fool to challenge them.